Chapter 20. You can see there how Bryce had made him kind of into a puppet so he could dance. How many dancing rabbits have you seen in your life? Bryce said to Edward. I can tell you how many I've seen. One. You. That's how you and me are going to make some money. I seen it last time I was in Memphis. Folks put on any kind of show right there on the street and people would pay him for it. I seen him do it. The walk to town took all night. Bryce walked without stopping, carrying Edward under one arm and then talking to him the whole time. Edward tried to listen, but the terrible scarecrow feeling had come back. The feeling that he was hanging by his ears in the old lady's garden, the feeling that nothing mattered and that nothing would ever matter again. And not only did Edward feel hollow, he ached. Every part of his body hurt. He ached for Sarah Ruth. He wanted her to hold him. He wanted to dance for her. And he did dance, but not for Sarah Ruth. Edward danced for strangers on a dirty street corner in Memphis. Bryce played his harmonica and moved Edward's strings, and Edward bowed and shuffled and swayed, and people stopped to stare and point and laugh. On the ground in front of them was Sarah Ruth's button box. The lid was open to encourage people to drop change in. Mama, said a small child, look at that bunny. I want to touch him. And he reached out his hand for Edward. No, said the mom. It's dirty. She pulled it back. Nasty, she said. A man wearing a hat stopped and stared at Edward and Bryce. It's a sin to dance, he said. It's particularly a sin for rabbits to dance. The man took off his hat and held it over his heart. He stood and watched the boy and the rabbit for a long time. Finally, he put his hat back on his head and walked away. The shadows lengthened. The sun became an orange, dusty ball in the sky. Bryce started to cry. Edward saw tears land on the pavement, but the boy did not stop playing his harmonica, and he did not make Edward stop dancing. An old woman leaning on a cane stopped by. She stared at Edward with deep eyes. Pellegrina? The rabbit thought. She nodded at him. Look at me, he said to her. His arms and legs jerked. Look at me. You got your witch. I have learned how to love, and it's a terrible thing. I'm broken. My heart is broken. Help me. The old woman turned and hobbled away. Come back, Edward thought. Fix me. Bryce cried harder. He made Edward dance faster. Finally, when the sun had gone down and the streets were darker, Bryce stopped playing the harmonica. I'm done now, he said. He let Edward fall to the pavement. I'm not going to cry any more, Bryce said. We got us enough money to get something to eat. Come on, Jangles. Chapter 21. The diner was called Neil's. The word was written in big red neon letters that flashed on and off. Inside was warm and bright and smelled like fried chicken and toast and coffee. So they've gone into this little restaurant called Neil's Diner, and that's the sign outside, and it's in bright neon lights. Bryce sat down at the counter and put Edward on a stool next to him. He leaned the rabbit's forehead up against the counter so that he would not fall. What you gonna have, sugar? The waitress said to Bryce. Give me some pancakes, said Bryce, and some eggs, and I want a steak too, and I want a big old steak and some toast and some coffee. The waitress leaned forward, pulled at one of Edward's ears, and then pushed him back so that he could see his face. This your rabbit? She said. Yes, he's mine. He belonged to my sister. Bryce wiped his nose with the back of a hand. We're in show business, me and him. Is that right? Said the waitress, and she had a name tag on the front of her dress. Marlene, it said. She looked at Edward's face, and then she let go of his ear, and he fell forward so that his head rested on the counter again. Go ahead, Marlene, thought Edward. Push me around. Do what you want. It doesn't matter. I'm broken. Broken. The food came, and Bryce ate all of it without even looking up for the plate. Well, you were hungry for sure, said Marlene. I reckon show business is hard work. Yes, ma'am, said Bryce. Marlene tucked the check under the coffee table. He picked it up and looked at it and shook his head. I ain't got enough, he said to Edward. Ma'am, he said to Marlene when she came back, I ain't got enough. What, sugar? No, I ain't got enough money. She stopped pouring the coffee and looked at him. You're going to have to talk to Neil about that. Neil, it turned out, was the owner and the cook. He was a big, red-haired, red-faced man who came out holding a spatula in his hand. You came in here hungry, right? He said to Bryce. Yes, sir, said Bryce as he wiped his nose on the back of his hand. And you ordered food, and I cooked it, and Marlene brought it to you, right? I reckon. You reckon? He brought the spatula down on the countertop with a thwack. Yes, sir. No, sir. I cooked it for you, said Neil. Yes, sir, said Bryce. He picked up Edward off the stool and held him close. Everyone in the diner had stopped eating. They were all staring at the boy and the rabbit and Neil. Only Marlene looked away. You ordered it. I cooked it. Marlene served it. You ate it. Now, said Neil, I want my money. Bryce cleared his throat. You ever seen a rabbit dance? What? Said Neil. You ever in your life seen a rabbit dance? Bryce set Edward on the floor and started pulling the strings, making a show shuffle. He put his harmonica in his mouth and played a sad song that went along with the dance. Somebody laughed. Bryce took the harmonica out of his mouth. He could dance more if you want, and he could dance to pay for what I ate. Neil stared at Bryce, and then without warning, he reached down and grabbed hold of Edward. This is what I think of dancing rabbits, he said. And he swung Edward by his feet, swinging him so that his head hit the edge of the counter hard. There was a loud crack. Bryce screamed. And Edward's world, went black. Okay, so Bryce went into this diner and he ordered a bunch of food because he had made some money. But then when the bill came, he saw he didn't have enough money. So the owner and the cook, the guy, came out and was mad at him. So he tries to make Edward dance for the man, and the man took Edward and threw him, and it cracked Edward's head on the counter.